I think we're ready to begin. Welcome to our session, Preparing Meaningful RPL Messaging for Immigrants Coming to Canada. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I know everybody is tired and busy and getting ready to go home, but so we're really happy that you choose to join our conversation this afternoon. My name is Eileen Kelly-Freake, and I direct the Access, Career and Employment Services Division of the Association for New Canadians in St. John's, Newfoundland. And I act as chair of the CAPLA Immigrant RPL Working Group. I'd like to introduce three other members of our working group who are up here with me this afternoon. Jason MacFarlane, who's an employment counselor with the Multicultural Association of Fredericton. Jan Carter, a manager of internationally trained immigrant advising program, George Brown College, and Cynthia Murphy, director of the Canadian Immigrant Integration Project with the Association of Canadian Community Colleges. So during our session this afternoon, we hope that you will workshop and develop with us our ideas regarding identifying and gathering, and above all, positioning our RPL resources for immigrants on where we are going with our newly formed group. We're going to invite you to participate in our discussions. After our presentation, we'll have a brief presentation on our project to gather ideas and feedback as we move forward. Just a word about our committee. Last year at the CAPLA conference board meeting, the board members felt that there was a need to set up a special working group to focus on PLR needs for newcomers to Canada. Our first introductory conference call took place in November, and we have 17 members who are very actively engaged in the RPL practices, providing immigrant-related services and research. Our members represent many sectors, such as post-secondary, and we have the ACCC, regulators, immigrants, settlement agencies, and industry. So we have a really good representation of the various interested groups. We first took some time to develop and finalize our terms of reference, as we felt that was very, very important for us as we moved forward. And then we agreed on some key priorities for 2013-2014. I'll just run through these very quickly. So we have three. First, we wanted to promote and advance a greater awareness of the value and benefits of RPL for immigrants, and then provide a platform for sharing and seeking input from all our stakeholders. And then the next very important thing we thought we needed to do was develop the tools and resources that would enhance RPL programs and services for immigrants. As we began our discussions, we very quickly became aware that there is a wide range of RPL resources available on many sites in many locations, and many, many wonderful pieces of information that's so valuable to all stakeholders, but particularly for immigrants. However, we realize that immigrants are not always aware of these tools, nor are they available in user-friendly language. So that was the priority for us. We felt we needed to identify and gather already related available resources and best practices, and to streamline these in some kind of a system. And we thought about having a one-stop online repository. We also felt we needed to develop a new communication resources to clarify the assessment and recognition of prior and current learning for immigrants and stakeholders. And to assist in this, we set up a subcommittee and we call our subcommittee the RPL Resources and Exchange Committee, and several of our working group members are working on this as well. And this is really to help us identify and gather the resources and then to help navigate through the systems and structures. So today we're going to highlight our progress thus far. We certainly are a work in progress and we're at our very initial stages, and that's why we need to engage you right from the beginning with us. Our 3 activities that we have identified are to have a resource template, and then to have a concept, to have something visual like an infographic to help the immigrants see the key components easily of RPL, credentialing, language, and current and prior learning. And then we thought as well we needed to address newcomers who are pre-arrivals, as well as people who are in the province, with a very simplistic, clarified and simplistic brochure or something of that nature to identify the differences between credentialing and competency assessment. So first I'm going to call on Jason to briefly discuss the template, and then Jan will move from there with the infographics, and Cynthia will discuss our idea for a brochure.
Thank you, Eileen. Good afternoon, everyone. As Eileen mentioned, it's been the goal of the CIIP RPL Working Group to develop effective communication strategies and resources to assist in clarifying the credential assessment and recognition process for newcomers, which is something that's really important for someone like me, an employment counselor, working day to day with newcomers to try and help them through the processes. But it's also, as we've seen in the last couple of days, important for admissions officers and registrars, faculty advisors, bridging program coordinators, employers, and professional associations. And there's lots of other stakeholders, as we know as well. As Eileen mentioned, what we're proposing is essentially a repository that one can access through CAPLA's website, where all interested parties can share resources, best practices, and information. And one of the means by which we wanted to approach CAPLA was to present them a template. If we could, how do we advance the slide here? The green? Okay. All right. There we go. And as you can see, a template like this, which would be hosted on CAPLA's website, would allow users to upload resources and documents, post links to tools, other websites, highlight services or information on credential assessment and recognition in the user's area or region. As you can see, the template, which is just in draft form, and we're hoping from you to solicit great ideas today, it would have users identify the region in which the information is relevant, the resource title, search tags that can direct visitors to related resources, the date of the posting, the type of resource. We thought we might include a pull-down menu here, and we're looking for information, some suggestions from you on what to include in that pull-down menu. Some of the suggestions we've come up with is a tool, a service, a document, a best practice, other information that might help us categorize the resource. The potential user, who it's intended for, a short description, which I'll talk a little bit more about in a minute, contact information of the poster or the organization so that users, someone who's searching or downloading, might be able to follow up and learn more. Back to the description, you see it's noted up there that the suggested description is between 100 and 140 words. One idea that we came up with in on our conference calls was perhaps an administrator could post some of the more interesting ideas to Twitter or Facebook. A lot of this, having a template on CAPLA's website does presuppose an investment of resources. Obviously someone to administer the template and someone to vet the resources against guidelines that have come up, like established criteria on what can be included as a resource. And as part of what I'll be doing at my table is I'd like to hear your suggestions on how we go about that, what criteria we use, and so on. So thank you. I'll turn it over to Jan.
Hi. Sorry. There we go. So one of the things that we had discussed as a committee is the use of infographics by industry, by organizations, by educational institutions, by financial institutions to help people understand complex ideas and complex processes broken down into smaller bits of manageable information in highly visual ways. And so what we thought we would like to get your feedback on is, would an infographic be a useful tool in the context of helping immigrants understand the processes and the reasons why considering an RPL process on arrival in Canada or before they arrive in Canada would be important to their success in integrating into employment and into the rest of what they want to do and achieve in Canada. And so what we've done is we've put together the very bare bones of ideas, and particularly starting with, what is it and what do I need it for? So hopefully guiding people through if you need your academics, the credentials assessed. Do you need to have your work assessed? Are you going into a regulated profession? Is it unregulated? What are your end goals? Are you intending to go to work right away? Or are you intending to take language classes? Are you intending to go into a college or a university program? Are you looking to upskill in your profession, or are you looking to change professions? So what are your goals in the end, and what are the processes that you need to take to get there, and that this is an extremely complex process because each of these goals assesses skills in different ways and they require different assessments, and some of the things may be done by the regulatory bodies, some may be done differently by an educational institution. Language is going to be assessed differently depending on the profession. And so what we're trying to do is just get your feedback on how do we make this clear. And is this a useful tool? And if so, how do we make this super clear? And when we're taking a look at the draft we have today, your feedback is critical in terms of what we're missing, what can be added, what shouldn't be in there in the first place. How do we make this reasonable for an across Canada understanding of RPL? So it's got to be high level, but how do we direct people to resources that will support them regardless of whether they're arriving in British Columbia, in the Atlantic provinces, in Quebec or Ontario? What can we do? So that's what my table will be discussing, and I'm really looking forward to your feedback. Thanks. And I'll hand it over to Cynthia now.
Good afternoon, everyone. When I think about this committee's work and in the context of pre-arrival, I drilled it down a bit into my own experience with pre-arrival. What we do through the CIIP program is we work with federal skilled workers and provincial nominees before they come to Canada. I'll put my questions up in a minute, but I just want to give you a context. So as we were developing these tools, and I agreed to work on a brochure that we could provide for immigrants or potential immigrants pre-arrival, the big question that came up for me was, how do we reach these folks? And are we using the right tools when we think of paper-based or web page, or what should we be doing? And one of the reasons that the question was so clear to me is we went through an exercise in a couple of our offices just recently, and we've turned it into a tool we use all the time. We were relying on Citizenship and Immigration Canada to reach our clients. That's the process we had agreed upon with them. And they send a letter of invitation by email, and it's a pretty back and forth process. And at one point, somebody in our Philippines office said to us, well, we don't read email. We probably won't answer your email. We don't use our cell phones for telephone calls. We want to be text. We want to receive text messages from CIC and from your program. So we then went on to start this project where we text all potential clients in the Philippines at a couple of points in their immigration process. The numbers went through the roof. I mean, it was crazy. The registrations were just absolutely flooding in. We thought, yeah, okay, well, that was a really simple learning for us. So when I put it in the context of an infographic or a brochure or what we do on the web, I'm thinking what we want to hear from you, or what I want to hear from you, is that the right way to reach your clients? When I think of a paper brochure, you know, we've all done that many times, and you'll see my questions. The first one is this an appropriate way to reach people pre-arrival? Because with a brochure, what we find in our offices, we have dozens of brochures from different organizations all across Canada. And we have them there for immigrants to take home with them at the end of the session. Most people leave with them, you know, in their little packet, and they're all bundled up in a bag. And they tell us after they get to Canada that in packing their suitcases and getting their kids ready and getting ready to go, one of the first things to hit the garbage can is all of that paper that they picked up. They want it electronically, they want it on their phones, they want it through an app. So for me, the key piece to leave this session with today is to reach people pre-arrival. Yeah, we can develop a brochure, but what's the best way to transmit it? Is it on paper? Like you'll see a paper copy of a really wordy thing that I hope you'll just tear to pieces when we get to the group sessions. Or do we develop an app that's available on all phones, you know, Apple phones, Android, whatever? Do we have it available as some sort of link through the web page? Those are the key questions for me, and those are the key questions that we're hearing from our clients. And you know, when I think about how am I doing for time? Am I almost done? Okay. When I think about who we work with overseas, we know we're pretty tech savvy in Canada. They are super tech savvy in the Philippines, in India, in China, where the majority of immigrants who are coming to Canada are from. The other piece that I just want to quickly raise about RPL and PLAR and the entire concept for people pre-arrival is it requires a very basic explanation of what it is. When you've come from an education system that's very, very test-driven and very rote learning, like it is in many of the countries where people come from to Canada, the concept of recognizing prior experience and Grant, thank you for this quote, for recognizing what you learn from that experience, not the experience itself, is an incredibly, I won't say difficult concept to transmit, but it's something that we really have to take into account when we're messaging. We assume everybody gets it, and quite frankly, they don't. And I shouldn't say everybody gets it, because it took me a while to get my head around parts of it, I freely admit. So when we're working with immigrants who haven't had that exposure to that information, we have to ensure that the information is not insultingly low languaged, but is appropriate language so that people understand what process we're talking about. And to give you one quick link, when you apply through the Federal Skilled Worker Program, it's a human capital model. You're given points for all kinds of things that you possess coming in, and to use the Minister of CIC's words, the best and the brightest is who he wants. One of the points on the grid is years of experience. Now that's gone down in points with the new policy changes, but it's still there. So when I apply, my years of experience of work are valued. It doesn't talk about valuing what I learned from those years of experience. So I'm putting out a challenge to you. We really want to hear back from you. Like I say, I hope you take that draft brochure of mine and tear it up and throw it out and tell us to start all over again. And those are I'm not going to read those to you because you'll see them in the brochure. Those are the questions that are in that brochure. But we want you to work today. We want you to put your brains to work. We want your advice, and we want to come up with a tool that we can use effectively pre-arrival.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, so you have a very brief overview of the initiatives that we've been working on thus far. So now for the next piece of our meeting this afternoon, we're going to invite you to join one of our groups, 1, 2, 3, table 1, 2, and 3. And we're going to have 10 minutes workshopping each of our initiatives. And then we'll ask you to change, and we'll do the same until we have all of the components worked through. So if you wouldn't mind, I would ask you to move to 1, 2, or 3, and Jason and Cynthia and Jan will move after 10 minutes. You'll stay in your group, and we'll be able to get as much feedback as we can. We really look forward to hearing your ideas because, as I said, it's in its very initial stages and we want to get it right, so we want to involve as many people as we can. We've certainly had a lot of discussion with our own working group, but really your opinion and feedback is really important to us. Okay. I'm terribly sorry to interrupt, but we have to finish up our session. We have another group waiting to come in, but before we finish up, we need to have each of our team leaders make a general comment or summarize as best you can, just for a minute each. We thought we'd have time to go through it all, but we won't. The conversation has been so rich and exciting. It's wonderful. So we have lots of ideas floating around here. Who wants to go first? Jan?
Of course, I've scribbled all my notes all over, so luckily you've all been paying attention, you've all participated, so if I missed something, let me know. Can you put on the infographic?
Oh, here you go. Just go back. Right.
There we are. So thank you very much for your comments and suggestions on the infographic. For the most part, people seem to think that the infographic is a good idea, that it's an appropriate tool to try and help people understand visually the broad strokes of the process. In general, the use of the icons is really helpful, but also some comments to really watch out how you use the icons and what images you're using and how those images can be interpreted in different contexts, which was really good feedback. Some of the comments, it was a little bit too linear. So the challenge is that this isn't a linear process depending on what your own personal needs are. But perhaps think of this document as a self-awareness piece. Is there a way to make this infographic into a self-assessment tool? So driving awareness that there are multiple assessments on their way to you as you arrive in Canada, and you need to start preparing. So a checklist of things that you need to prepare before you leave, which really helps because it's really difficult to get those documents once you've arrived here. But also, are there things that you can do pre-arrival to start this process, or is this something you need to do when you arrive? Is there a natural starting place? So if English language assessment is the natural starting place, that'll be your point one. People referenced a number of good examples in other professions, engineering, process flow charts, the Manitoba Fairness Commissioner looking at more curvy pathways so that you can have multiple trails snaking off. So thank you very much. We'll take a look at that information. We'll work with the committee to work on this. I think we've got all your email addresses, so we may in fact email you some of the newer drafts and get some feedback. But really appreciate it. Great ideas, and I think you'll have our contact details. So if you take the infographics back to your staff, if you can talk to them about what's missing, what can be added, you can easily email me, and we'll take that into consideration as we're going out and looking to rebuild into a brand new draft. Thank you.
There are so many suggestions with regards to the template that I'm scrambling to get them all kind of linked together. Thank you so much. We had a lot of great discussion. A few things that came up was, of course, the administrative piece and who's going to make sure that this is put together and quality and all of the things that are posted to this repository are going to pass the criteria. So some important questions. Because of the fact that the provinces in many cases are responsible for the actual licensing of the different professions, different occupations, it was suggested that we link and we stay quite close to what the provinces are doing in the regulatory side and the associations in those provinces, because everybody's doing it differently. there were lots and lots of questions about location, and lots of great suggestions on making sure that when people went into this database or repository, they were able to quickly find out what they were looking for in simple language and relevant to their region, so thank you for that. And most importantly, I think, or amongst the most important suggestions we had, was to make it either newcomer focused or practitioner focused, not kind of on the fence between, because the language is different, and really the language of purpose is different too. You want to make sure that people can quickly, if they're a newcomer to Canada, being directed to this resource by an employment counselor, want to make sure that they can find what they're looking for and it's helpful to them. So those were just a few of many, many great suggestions, and this will go forward to our steering committee, our working group. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Jason.
I'll be super quick. We're going to throw out the brochure, okay? It's disappearing. I've asked if we can create a subcommittee to work on the text of a new way of conveying the information. The 3 questions we talked about: what is the hook? What's the main message we need to convey? We need to use simple language to convey it, and it needs to be web-based but linked to mobile devices.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for all of that. And thank you to all the group for your contribution this afternoon. It's been so beneficial. And our contact information is right here. So we're sorry we don't have any more time for discussion, but please feel free to contact us or to talk to any of us after the session. Thank you again.